Good morning. Welcome to Peregrine Global Services webinar, Build a Better Workforce, a look at the competencies graduates need. We're so pleased you could join us today. I am here, I'm sorry, I'll go ahead and switch to the next slide. Let's just take a moment to present ourselves here. My name is Christina Perry. I am the portfolio manager at Peregrine Global Services. I've been with the company about 5 years now, and I am tasked with the development of new online educational content and also assessment services. With me is my colleague, Deborah Robbins. Debbie?
Hi, good morning. I'm Debbie Robbins. I am the COO for Peregrine Global Services. I've been with us for a little over 10 years. And I kind of keep everything running smoothly, and we take care of our clients through my department. So I'm happy to be here. I also do a lot of our leadership development training. So very excited to talk about building a better workforce today. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Okay, before we get started, I was going to talk about the structure of the webinar. It is divided into 3 sections. We'll devote approximately 10 minutes to each. The first part will be identifying the problem before we implement any solutions. The second focuses on preparing students for career success. And then we will conclude with the section on creating a system to assure academic programs are delivering on their learning objectives and that they're following that cycle of continuous improvement. So there are a few different ways to participate. We will have 3 polls at different points in the webinar, so we ask you to pay attention to your screen and vote when those comes up. If you have a question or a comment, there is a question box in the little chat box there that you can type in a question, and we'll take questions and answers at the end. If you need to raise your hand, we can call on you, and then we do ask that you keep your microphone muted until it's time to speak. That just avoids the background noise. We are offering a free gift to webinar participants today. All of the participants in today's webinar will receive access to one of Peregrine's newest modules, which is called Speaking Pro. You'll have a chance to request your access code at the end of the presentation, and we'll talk more about that then. With that, I'll hand this over to Debbie. She's going to work through the first part of the webinar where we're really talking about the practical implications of what students need to succeed in the workplace.
Yes, thanks, Christina. So my background is in human resources. I spent about 26 years doing human resource work before joining Peregrine, and have spent the last 10 years actually doing a lot of HR consulting, advising, and working with companies as they're trying to create the workforce they want, particularly looking at things like developing culture and developing soft skills. So this fits really well into my history. So really the question we want to ask today is, what are human resource professionals looking for in their workforce? Well, people are often hired because they fit into a culture and fit the way that business wants to work. In fact, most interviews today are focused on soft skills, over spending a lot of time delving into the technical skills. A survey of Fortune 500 CEOs revealed that 75% of the CEOs said long-term success depends on soft skills, and only 25% of a person's success is based on their technical skills. Now, some of you may say, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Well, certainly I'm not going to hire an engineer that doesn't have an engineering background or an accountant without an accounting background. So when you are looking for someone, often when you're looking at a resume or a CV, you're looking for those technical skills, and that's what gets you to the interview. But most interviews nowadays are really focused on soft skills because it's such a critical factor in the success of an employee. So what are these soft skills that we're talking about? Well, they're a combination of people skills, social skills, communication skills, character and personality traits that enable you to navigate your environment, work well with others, perform well, achieve your goals without with complementing your hard skills. These skills are often hard to describe, but we can easily describe when we see them lacking in someone. In 2016, the Wall Street Journal survey showed that 92% of executives viewed soft skills as important as technical skills. It's a pretty big percentage of people seeing the importance of soft skills today. Earlier this year, LinkedIn survey did a survey from employers and identified the top 5 soft skills that employers are looking for. And they're creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. So those are the top 5 skills this year that employers were looking for. And then a couple years ago, MIT Sloan Study conducted this research in India across 5 factories in Bangalore. And what they found is those that had been trained in soft skills actually had an ROI of 250% over those that didn't go through the training. Big change in productivity just based on some soft skills training. In 2017, West Virginia University had a study, and they suggested that most employees are fired due to a lack of people skills, professionalism, communication. Only 15% of workers in their survey were actually fired because of job knowledge. So I want to tell you a little story. I want to tell you a story about Doug, because I spent many years as a human resource manager. This gentleman was promoted. He was a great worker in his department, and he was promoted to be the supervisor. And he had a fairly decent relationship with everyone. But as a supervisor, the skills he needed to be successful were his soft skills, not his hard technical skills. And he really had a difficult time connecting with his team. His communication was limited, it was often forced. He had no idea how to share anything about vision or direction for the department or try to inspire his employees. And so he really struggled with them. He had difficulty reading body language, and so he was really unable to respond correctly to people. And his team members came to me often complaining that he was insensitive and uncaring. So I spent a couple years trying to coach him on how to read body language, how to show that he cared about his employees. And eventually he left the organization, which was really a good thing because we were in the process of probably terminating him if he hadn't have left. And so his departure was actually timed wisely for him. He returned to a line employee for another company where he's an excellent employee. But his failure as a supervisor really was due to his inability to show people he cared, to use his active listening skills, and to communicate important things in a way that encouraged participation and collaboration. He was about to be terminated because of his lack of soft skills. It had nothing to do with his technical skills.
Thanks, Debbie, for that story. That really is a cautionary tale. I'd like to take a moment now to launch a poll. You'd mentioned the LinkedIn survey this year of the top 5 soft skills that employers are looking for. Let me go ahead and launch a poll here so that our audience can go ahead and comment. Which of the following soft skills do you think you do the best job in instilling in your students before they graduate? So I'm going to let people just take a minute here to vote. Creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. It looks like those are the types of things that we're missing in Doug.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, before I share the results, it was starting to be a runaway in one area. I'll just kind of preview, but we still have a few responses coming in, so I'll wait just a moment here. I will say that 2 of the top 5, nobody seems to be addressing in their program. So let's go ahead and I'm going to close the poll now, and we can share the results. So as you can see right now, collaboration is the one that most of our attendees seem to foster in their students. Emotional intelligence, about 1/3 of them, and then creativity. It looks like persuasion and adaptability may be falling short. And I think that this year, with the focus on adaptability, that might be something people are working at going forth. So let me go ahead and close that for a moment. Okay. Debbie, are you still seeing the screen now where we are back to our slideshow?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Peggy just
great.
advanced one slide.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So I'll let you go ahead and talk about the NACE career readiness competencies.
All right. So in line with that, the poll we just took, NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And they found 8 competencies, or they've defined 8 competencies that have been developed through an interactive process involving both career services professionals and recruiting staff of more than 600 employers. And the competencies represent both what the career service professionals should be helping their students achieve and what employers are broadly looking for in their ideal candidates. And so, these 8 categories are really things that career service professionals should be looking to try and help develop in their curriculum somehow. Now, Peregrine's got leading edge learning modules that broadly cover these topics. We have modules under each of the topics, touching most, if not all, of what you and your employees or students would need to develop some of those soft skills in turn, to create a more positive work environment. So I just want to talk quickly through each of these. We're not going to talk a lot about our modules today. We're really talking more about the research. The first area is that area of critical thinking. And this is really demonstrating the ability to think and problem solve by gathering and interpreting data. Oral and written communication. Effective communication is essential in everything we do. And particularly what we found with certain generations, the oral communications need some work. Teamwork and collaboration, this functioning as part of a team and building those relationships that sustain you through a lifetime, a career, with a diversity of people, a lot of people who may be different from you and grown up in different regions of the world, in different areas of the country, that create a values difference sometimes. Digital technology, obviously employees need to be able to use digital technology ethically and efficiently to solve problems. We tend to think of younger people being digital natives. That doesn't necessarily mean they know how to use the technology that we need to use in the workplace. Leadership, a big thing. This is, we started out as a leadership development company because of this. We really need leaders that will engage in leveraging and inspiring and motivating the talent that they have. Professionalism and work ethic, this comes a little bit on the side of technical skills, but mostly it's really having that strong work ethic to fulfill being a great employee, a good employee. Being able then to career manage, understanding what your career might need and being able to motivate yourself to get the kinds of skills that you need. And then last but not least, the global intercultural fluency. These are all huge issues with employers today. And the global and intercultural fluency has become more and more important this year, as we've seen with our environment here in the US. Now, I do want to mention next week, we do have a deep dive into our leading edge learning modules. And so you can get more information on the solutions to enhance your curriculum if you want. And as Christina said, we're going to give you one of our modules called Speaking Pro by Roger Love. And this would fit into the oral communications category so that you can sample what our modules are like.
And I want to just jump in and say, if Debbie, I don't know if you've had a chance to go through the Roger Love course, but I absolutely loved it. Roger Love is a voice coach who works with people in Hollywood. He worked with Bradley Cooper in A Star Is Born. He worked with Jeff Bridges in Crazy Heart. Anytime where there are actors who are both singing, speaking, the course itself teaches people how to give better presentations on stage or even on videos, webinars. But I learned a lot from it, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Thank you for bringing that up, Christina, because I loved it too. Roger Love has a great way of just being able to understand how you present yourself to others. And I think that's so important in building those relationships. All right, I'm going to do just a few more slides here. So let's look at how do we develop these workplace skills. And I want to tell you a quick story as let's do this. Early in my career, I came right out of college into a supervisory position. And I supervised 9 women that were my mother's age, 1 woman that was a couple years younger than me, and 2 men. And my degree was in HR, and so I had studied management techniques. And like most 24-year-olds, I thought, well, I've got this down. I know this. But one of the men who was a little bit younger than I was, we just didn't hit it off. And he would often yell at me in the middle of the office. And so like any good supervisor, I would yell back. And I would put him in his place. I didn't think about, oh gosh, you shouldn't criticize in public. I did everything textbook wrong when I look back. And I confronted him in public and I criticized him and I tried to catch him doing things so that I could confront him. I mean, it was just a horrible situation. I never used my active listening skills. I never used empathy. I never used collaboration, all of those soft skills that are so important in leading others. After about a year, he came to me publicly in front of everyone and handed me his resignation and said, I'm joining the Army because this is going to be easier than working for you. And I was crushed. 1, because it was so public, and 2, because, oh my gosh, the Army being easier than me. So when I went home that day in tears, I decided, I've got to learn about these soft skills. I've got to learn about leadership. I've got to learn about teamwork. I've got to learn how to be the kind of boss that other people want to work for. And I think all of us have a story similar to that in our background where we can go, oh yeah, I really screwed that up because I needed to learn something about some of these soft skills that we're talking about. So how do we learn them? Well, there's a couple of them that are really key. And the first one I think is communication. How well do you communicate? Employers value employees who can communicate their own ideas, but also those who can listen empathetically, that's a hard word, empathetically to others. Communication has a subset of soft skills, the verbal, the nonverbal. What is your nonverbal communication? Does it match your verbal? Are you able to read other people's nonverbals to ensure understanding? Listening is 50% of the communication process. When you're engaged in a conversation, many of us are busy thinking about our own response and we're not truly listening to what's going on. And conveying to another person that you are truly listening can help diffuse tension in a situation and make them feel valued. Negotiation and persuasion. With the pace of change in our world today, the ability to communicate change, get people going in a new direction, is vital in our success. And then the presentation and writing skills. These may seem more like hard skills, but by using your ability to read your audience and incorporate emotional intelligence into your presentations and your business correspondence, however that's done in writing, it'll increase respect and it will help you really build those trusting relationships. Another piece is critical thinking. Critical thinking is a skill that's in high demand right now. No matter what the job is, employers want candidates and employees who can analyze the situation and make informed choices. Critical thinkers need to be able to use their skills in adaptability, creativity, innovation, openness to learning from others, and how they approach problem solving in collaborative ways, and their willingness to learn how to make right decisions is essential for the workplace today. Teamwork. We've talked a little bit about teamwork. I think teamwork is kind of one of those things where people go, oh, of course we need teamwork. Whether you participate in a lot of teams or simply a few departmental meetings, you need to be able to work effectively with the people around you. You need to be able to work with others even when you don't see eye to eye. Our environment today is if we don't see eye to eye, then somebody's wrong. And we really have to learn how, as a team, to collaborate and get feedback and focus on the goal at hand and let some of our own ego go. And that's really important in effective workplace environments today. So in short, these soft skills can be developed through experiential learning. That's the best way to build them, where the learner takes an active role in how they develop that idea, that technique, putting it into practice, learning from their failures as well as from their successes.
Thanks, Debbie. And in here we have a slide that just talks about some different activities that build soft skills. And these are things that I'm sure a lot of our audience members already do. I just wanted to give an example. Aside from working as a portfolio manager at Peregrine, in my free time, I'm pursuing a doctoral program at Vanderbilt. And I wanted to give an example from my graduate program. We did an activity in a strategy and analytics class that was a competition for a $5 million grant. Now, obviously, we didn't get the $5 million. That would have been nice. But our class was divided up into groups of 4 or 5 people. And that really resembled a real life work situation where you might have a remote team that you're working with. We were assigned to these teams, and then we had to schedule our meetings. So use our time management. We had to use negotiation and persuasion skills to choose a project. We had to delegate the different research tasks. And then finally put a presentation together and use sort of persuasion, presentation, public speaking to convince the entire class to vote for us, because the class was the ones that would vote on the winning proposal. And then at the end of the assignment, the assessment part involves peer evaluation of our teammates and of ourselves and our contributions that we put toward the project. So that was an example of problem-based learning where we came together as a group to learn so much more than just strategic planning and financial analysis. We learned how to work together and bring a project to life.
Yeah, that's great, Christina, because I think it's that real world experience that really helps us test out some of the things that we've learned in the classroom. And internships, I think, is another great way of doing that. It's a valuable way of putting that learning into practice. It's also a great way to assess some of it. So, you know, internships are great for students to be able to get experience in their field, but also using that internship and maybe a 360 feedback evaluation, particularly focused on soft skills, can be a great advantage to the students. By seeing themselves through other people's eyes, they can learn to make adjustments in their own behavior so that they can become better at collaboration, problem solving, interacting with other people. And they learn a lot about themselves in that process. And then the university can learn about how well they are instilling some of those types of soft skills in their students.
Absolutely. And Debbie alluded to this earlier, but next week's webinar, if you're interested in tuning in, we'll focus on Peregrine's leading edge learning modules. And, you know, we talked about the National Association of Colleges and Employer, those 8 competencies that they have that graduates need to succeed in the workforce. We have organized online educational content to fit those different competencies. So if you say, you know, we are actually missing something on teamwork or collaboration or whatever the field might be, you could look for modules that can be integrated into your curriculum that involve the didactic piece, but also the assessment to demonstrate those learning outcomes. So tune in next week if you're interested to learn more. Um, Now that we've discussed the importance of soft skills in the workplace and some ways to develop them, let's talk about making soft skills part of your assessment plan for continuous improvement. I'm going to launch another quick poll right now. How many of you currently have an assessment process for soft skills? This is an area that many institutions struggle with, finding an objective measure of something that can really be subjective or intangible. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. Okay, looks like we're getting a few votes in here to see if we have people assessing their soft skills.
This is such a hard one to assess.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes the assessment can be rather informal or at a class level, but not necessarily a program level. So it looks like a little over half of our people have voted. I'll just give it just a moment more. Well, I don't even have to share that. Well, I guess I can go ahead and close it here and share 50-50. About half of you do have an assessment plan and a process for assessing the soft skills, and half of you don't. So that's interesting to learn. Oops, let me
Yeah,
just see.
before you jump on, there is a comment here that someone doesn't specifically assess soft skills, but most of their assessments incorporate some soft skills in their assessments. So
That is good. And it says all of our courses require application and experiential learning. You know,
perfect.
that is very useful. And I think that the solution that I'm going to talk about next is a way to you know, you already do the assessment, but do you have a way of reporting it? Do you have a way of measuring it? So that's what I am going to talk about next. So let me just put that away. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking things out here. Okay,
You're
so we're out here. So what we need to concern ourselves with assessment, because often institutions or programs do have intended learning outcomes relative to student behaviors and competencies. So aside from the technical knowledge and hard skills, academic programs often set goals for critical thinking or teamwork or communication. Rather than what the student will know upon graduation, these types of learning outcomes really focus on the type of person that the student will be. So we spoke about the NACE competencies and how many learning outcomes do reflect key workplace skills. So here I'm going to give you an example of learning outcomes by degree level. So for bachelor's, for master's, and for doctoral level. And these are the skills such as critical thinking and communication. I'm going to look at the objectives related to communication. So here for bachelor's level, we have the student will be able to deliver effective and professional communications using a variety of delivery venues. For master's level, demonstrate highly developed communication and collaboration skills needed by effective business professionals. So maybe more application in the workplace. And for doctoral level, present scholarly work by appropriate communication channels. So how do students demonstrate mastery of these outcomes? You've set a goal, how do we measure it? To know whether students achieve the learning outcomes, the institution needs to set the institution needs to set a target. We need to be able to measure performance in an objective way to demonstrate achievement or to set goals for improvement. This idea follows the plan, do, study, act, Deming cycle of improvement. First, plan the outcome and the target, do the assessment, study the results and identify any gaps, and then act by making changes to the program to improve outcomes in the next round. So I'm going to return to our communication example that we had before. I'm going to bring up a slide that shows an MBA program that has a learning outcome. Their learning outcome for communication is that students will demonstrate highly developed communication and collaboration skills needed by effective business professionals. Well, that's a worthy outcome, but how can it be assessed? So here the institution sets a target. 80% of graduates will receive a score of 3.5 or better on a 360-degree evaluation of communication skills. With this target as a starting place, the program can begin to measure their students' performance. Perhaps the target is too low and students will easily clear the bar, but perhaps assessment will show a need for further development to reach that target. About half of you reported that you do not currently have a way to assess soft skills. So what I wanted to present today is a tool that Peregrine has developed called Evalu Skills, Workplace Skills Assessment. This is a comprehensive 360-degree assessment tool that you can use to assess soft skills of employees or students, and you can use those results to help set goals and timelines and improve those soft skills. This is a very customizable tool. So if you do have specific learning objectives that are related to your program outcomes, you can choose the soft skill items that match your program and create an instrument that's targeted to your learning objectives. Each soft skill in the database has a corresponding rubric, and it has behavior descriptions and sample behaviors that the person taking the assessment can use to increase objectivity. So for example, if Debbie and I are both evaluating a student who on this critical thinking and problem solving skills, here we have examples of what we mean by competent, what we mean by exceptional, and that takes some of the subjectivity of the rating out of it. So for example, here we're looking at a 5-point scale, and a person who is competent approaches problems in a new, innovative way, is not afraid of asking what if to explore previously unimagined options and discuss them impartially. but maybe this person that we're evaluating is really exceptional. That would mean that they're naturally creative, able to work backwards and imagine steps that will lead to a desired result, and has a wide range of studies and views on and different perspectives of history, geography, religion, and economics. So that you can see that the instrument here is built to lend greater objectivity to the assessment. Once the student has gathered feedback, and we suggest that they select a group of evaluators, or perhaps the academic program will have evaluators selected for them, to gather feedback from at least 5 or 6 people, but maybe more, to get a full perspective of how they perform on each of those soft skill competencies. So here, at the end of the assessment, the student would receive a report that shows their average rating across all of the soft skills that were chosen, and then any area where they really exceeded. So here, the student really exceeded in curiosity and in business trend awareness, but they did suffer a little bit on logical thinking. So that gives them an idea of where they might need to improve and develop. The student also gets a report to show how they performed compared to their group. If this assessment was given into an entire cohort of students that were graduating from a program, or perhaps at the end of a group project, or maybe after they've done some internships, they can see that their self-score, where they rated themselves compared to how their evaluators rated them, and then also how the group performed as a whole. So the student can see where they might really excel and where they might use some additional development. Lastly, the report includes an auto-generated action plan, giving them a tool to set SMART goals. So they can designate someone to hold them accountable. They can set a timeline, specific actions they're going to take to improve their performance in a certain area. So for example, here, this student, it looks like being open-minded was identified as a weakness. So they might look and do some research on what are some actions I can take to improve that. What am I going to do to better my open-mindedness? Who will hold me accountable, and when do I want to check results? So finally, this is a value skills tool, and this is something, if you want more information after the webinar, please do reach out to us. But this is designed so that the learners themselves can prepare for careers identifying their strengths and weaknesses. They might even be able to promote that as things that they're skills they can list on their resume. But then also the program itself can use the group results to determine their student achievement. Looking back in those learning objectives, they could see, okay, did 80% of our students reach a certain threshold? And are we meeting those learning objectives, or do we need to further reinforce these areas? So it is useful to both the student as they move forth and seek to, develop into their professional career, and also it provides useful information for academic decision making. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and that's actually the last section that I want to talk about for value skills. So we wanted to see if our audience here has any best practices and tips we can share. If you think back to that poll question that we had when we talked about what soft skills you are doing well at developing, can you tell us how you are building those skills within your classroom? Um, Please enter a few of the tips into the question bar or the chat bar to share with the group, and we can learn from what you're doing. I know that collaboration was a big one. Does anyone have an idea of how they do foster that? And I'll just pause for a minute. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm getting a little froggy, and see if anybody has some ideas.
Yes, if we can share some tips, that'd be great. I do see a question about this assessment of a value skills is Peregrine's. We've been doing 360 assessments in the business and industry world for 15 years, and we modified it specifically to use in higher education. But it is ours, and it is very comprehensive. The rubrics are well developed, and I think there's over 250, 300 different competencies you can assess through it.
It really is very comprehensive, and it's one of those things where we like to work with the institution to look at what their learning outcomes are, and then match an instrument to those outcomes. Let me see, it looks like I've got a raised hand here. I'm trying to see. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I just put someone's hand down. Was that Aziza? Aziza, was that you? I'll go ahead and unmute you if I can. Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like you're self-muted. Okay, well, I'm just looking in our question bar here. I do have one suggestion that came in here. We have an idea for conflict and negotiation. So to develop conflict
Mm.
and negotiation, a role-playing activity for groups of three. So dividing the students into groups of three in breakout sessions. One person is a problem employee, one is a supervisor, and one is a person who gives feedback on the interaction, just observes. So this is a way that they can do some role playing, and it says that they change roles every 10 minutes. So that
Mm.
is a very useful technique. I've studied about that. That sometimes rather than reading and studying, actually getting into it and experiencing it for yourself, and then hearing feedback on the way you handling someone else's feedback. So that's a great idea.
That is a great idea. I like that.
Oh, looks like we have another one here that says, we have our students take part in simulations, group projects and presentations, case studies, role plays, and other experiential learning activities. Earlier this year, we redesigned our curriculum and methodology requirements to work toward building hard skills and soft skills for the fourth industrial revolution. Thank you. Thank you. That looks like you guys have taken a very holistic, comprehensive approach there. A lot
Yes,
of adult learning techniques. Okay.
and I was going to say, I think those adult learning techniques are vital in setting up experiential learning activities.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and that's one of the things that I've studied this term too is how do we create long-term memory? If we're just reading and studying, we tend to forget, and it's once you've put yourself out there and learned from a mistake, those are the ones that stick with you for life. So
Yeah,
those are great tips.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I don't see anyone else rushing to volunteer information. Maybe we have a shy audience, but please do share with us anytime you have an idea that we can pass on to our community. That is fantastic. But let's look. I have one final poll question for you here, and this is, what do you need from us? We're going to wrap up the webinar and provide our contact information here. But what we're going to provide you with the next poll, you'll be able to request access to that Speaking Pro module we talked about from Roger Love, a call to discuss assessment plans if you are, if you're interested in that sorry, I'm stumbling, EvaluSkills soft skill assessment, or if you want an email about information about different solutions for teaching some of these soft skills, developing them in your classes, or if you just like notification of upcoming webinars, you can select one or more of these options, and we will be able to provide you with the outreach that you need.
And just
Right.
a short reminder while you're doing that, that
Mhm.
next week's webinar is a deep dive into some of our leading edge learning modules that can be used to help fill curriculum gaps, or if you have employees that you need some development, specifically, some type of soft skill development, that works great for that as well.
Okay,
If you want to learn
fantastic.
more.
That is great, and I'll let this go just a moment more, just because we've only had about 50% of the people answer it. You can choose more than one if you want Speaking Pro module, and you also want to talk to us about soft skill assessment, or if you just say let us know when we have a next webinar, that's fine too. So let's go ahead and end that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to provide our contact information. Okay. So here, this is our phone and email. If you do have any questions, suggestions, anything that you need from us, please do feel free to reach out. We do have quite a remote workforce these days, but we should have someone get back to you in short order, and we're always available to schedule a Teams meeting, a Zoom call, or some way to reach you. But Debbie, I want to thank you so much for your expertise, and I know that you have a unique perspective from leading leadership workshops and working in HR, and now working through the academic consulting side that really ties it together.
Well, thank you, Christina. I always appreciate your perspective as well. And thank you to everyone for joining us today, to learn a little bit more about how to develop great employees, great leaders, and building that better workforce for the future.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we will see you guys next week if you can join our webinar on leading edge learning. Have a good week.
Thanks.